To most people in the world, dice are the tools used to play games. But to those who engage in D&D, the dice determine life and death itself. Now, if you've never played D&D, I know that sounds crazy, but let me paint you a picture of how that could play out. Here's one of my personal favorite stories from a friend of mine. Now, his players encountered a large wooden door, and the barbarian, doing as barbarians do, chose to try and smash it to pieces. Now, before I continue, I must explain that this really should have been no problem. The barbarian basically had a 90% chance of success here. The barbarian approaches the door. She steels herself, lines herself up. With a mighty roar and flying into a rage, she charges the door, battering herself against it. The player rolls the dice, and it's a 2. And just like rubber, the door flexes and throws her backwards 30 feet. With just that one roll, the world has changed. The DM had to invent a reason why this flimsy door could stop the gargantuan force of hulking muscle that is the barbarian. And so, he turned the door into rubber. An outcome neither he nor the players could have ever planned for, but one that they will certainly reminisce for ages to come. There's a common phrase you might hear other D&D players say, and that phrase is, the dice tell a story. And truly, they do. Sometimes it's awesome. Sometimes you want to take a hammer and smash the dice into a fine powder. But it's rarely boring. Let's take a step back and talk about D&D as a storytelling medium, right? It's pretty unique in the sense that, first of all, it's collaborative. Both the DM and the players contribute to and craft the story. But there are other forms of collaborative storytelling out there. Improv performances, for example. But where D&D truly becomes a unique form of storytelling is in its randomness. Because you see, no matter how strong a character is, how magically gifted the mage, how clever the rogue, in the end, success is never guaranteed. And because of that, every roll becomes something exciting to watch. Will it be a success? Will it be a failure? If it fails, how badly? If it succeeds, was it by enough? The range of possibilities is where the DM gets to exercise their creativity. Let's look at the scenario. Let's say the players plan to assassinate a corrupt noble, and if they fail, things are going to get real bad real quick. Now, each of them decides to set up their own form of ambush, arguing that surely one among the 6 of them is bound to succeed, right? And one by one, they all fail. The artificer knocks himself unconscious. The druid misses his spell. The sorcerer failed her stealth and was spotted. And now it's all left up to the rogue. He lifts his bow. He's hidden from sight. His target passes under his eyes. He needs a very high number for this. The odds are pretty stacked against him, but he has to try. The rogue's fingers relax. The arrow leaves his grasp and it flies towards the target. The die is rolled and clatters on the table, and the noble falls dead. Now, in a situation like that, it's truly tempting to lie about what you got, isn't it? Because you're doing it from a good place. You want to craft the story to be one of triumph, right? After all, no one wants to see things fail, especially when you've come so far. Now, rather than telling you not to do that, why don't we explore the other situation that could have happened? Let's rewind a little bit. The rogue looses the arrow, and it whizzes by the noble's head. She jumps back, stunned, and barks orders to her guard. In quick, well-trained movements, her guard lock down the area, begin searching for the assailants. The rogue almost makes it, but he rolls just a little bit too low on a persuasion check, and one of the guards clocks that he isn't from around here. The party is thrown in a prison cell, their weapons taken away. The magic users have their hands tied and their mouths gagged. the noble presses forward with her nefarious plan, with more urgency now. She can't afford to wait. Trapped and stripped of all their resources, the players only have 3 hours to escape, stop her, before those that they care about are potentially killed on her orders. Now, doesn't that sound like a hell of a way to start the next session? A full-on prison break where the players have to make use of every trick and unconventional idea they have to not only escape, but stop an army. They failed, yeah, sure. And now the stakes are higher than ever. And thus, the session itself becomes more exciting than it would have been if they simply killed the noble in the first attempt. Truthfully, in D&D, success or failures really don't matter that much. What matters is story progression, and as long as you let it, it will always happen naturally. Progression in the long run will always be more satisfying and more rewarding than a single moment of success or failure. Like, just look at the two situations I presented above. Which would you be more interested in? Escaping from the guards after a successful assassination, or a prison break with only your word and your wits? Now, to me, I think either one would be a pretty awesome session. And that's exactly the point. Failure doesn't lead to less enjoyable things or less memorable experiences. It just leads to different experiences that can be equally memorable if they are just given the chance. And eventually, when you do roll those nat 20s, I promise you, they are going to be moments you remember from the rest of your life. Take risk, expect consequence, enjoy the ride, and of course, embrace the failures.